Hi, super friends. Welcome to the rabbit hole that we call Supernormal,
where we delve into all the parapop culture topics that you love.
So throw on that aluminum foil hat, get the popcorn ready, and make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification to let you know when new episodes of Supernormal drop.
Sit back, listen with an open mind.
Enjoy the show.
Are you guys ready for some signs, symbols, and synchronicities? Because we are here for you.
Only if you say it again 10 times fast.
I don't think I even could try. I don't even think it. No, I don't think it would work.
Yeah. Do you need a sign and a synchronicity to know that this is the time for the podcast?
Hi, I'm Drew Barrymore.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We have good news. Megan, it's not Josie Grossi anymore.
Not Josie Grossi.
Well, welcome to the episode about signs, symbols, and synchronicities. So, should we dive right on in?
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
It's the 3 S's.
Yes.
Of spirituality.
They're pretty important.
No, you told me it was sexy time. That's what we were going to talk about. Well, I guess that's out of the bag. We're not talking about that today.
I mean, we can.
Couldn't that sometimes be a part of signs, symbols, and synchronicity?
Sure, why not?
I mean,
safe words.
Never limit the limitless, right? Never limit the limitless, as Eileen Davies says.
That's what we want to invoke as we're talking about.
Today's episode of Supernormal is brought to you by the letter S.
One time, one of the safe words that somebody used was a synchronicity for me.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Stop. No.
Are you going to tell us?
More.
It was pineapple, and that is the same word my dad used to use. I feel like that's...
I'm sorry, but what?
Don't use his face, Megan. But, oh my God.
I don't know. I'm just trying...
Here we go, offending more people. Oh no. Okay. My eyes are starting to tear up.
Oh. Oh, it's worse because your dad's dead.
That makes it a double sign.
We're literally talking about Logan's grandfather.
That makes it a triple sign.
It's worse.
Lord forgive her, she knows not what she does. I can't wear this shirt.
I know.
Oh, you made me sweat right on out of this knitted button down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, Matt's going in the tank in this episode, kids.
Oh my God. Okay.
Sorry.
This is going great.
Willey. Jesus Christ.
Listen, her last name's Willey for a reason. I'm just saying.
It's a sign.
It was at Thanksgiving and somebody got hit and I just had to keep eating. What the hell? Where do you go from there?
I don't know. She clears the room out.
You ruined me. I'm literally melting in my... Okay.
Is that my dog? Oh, it is.
Or Dana's dad.
and the consistency of the noise. I'm sorry. That's... What is wrong with us? Seriously, what's wrong with us?
This episode is fucked already.
We're so spiritual. God.
Why?
Dana's face.
Why? You can't do it.
We all needed this. Okay, we really did.
Oh my God.
I have hair in my mouth. Dana, did you too?
Okay, all right.
Okay. We're really inappropriate.
We're
Wow.
good. We're good.
I'm literally crying. Where did we last stop?
Okay, well.
I think we're going to have to just start over.
I had to stop crying first.
Oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Welcome back to another episode of SUPERnormal, where we got signs, symbols, and synchronicities. It's about the letter S today at SUPERnormal.
Yes. S is for signs and symbols and synchronicities. Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing we always get asked about all the time. And I think that it's the thing we question the most in our spiritual practices or whatever, whether it's coming from like a loved one. You know, I know we're all mediums here. Well, some of it, you know, the three of us are all mediums.
Well,
I was thinking the audience, they're not all mediums.
Well,
I was like, we're all mediums here. So like somebody's listening to this, like, I'm not a medium. Like, you know, the three of us are all mediums. So we get that question all the time of like, is my loved one sending me signs? But we can get signs and synchronicities from other things, but we get that all the time. Like, I want a sign from my loved one and things like that. So it's something we all the time get the question about. And then I feel like when we do get signs and synchronicities and all of that, we question it automatically. And we're like, is this real? All of that. And then we've got people like Matt who get signs all the time, right, Matt?
Oh yeah, no. Nope. Well, I mean, I'm oblivious. Like, I go throughout my life and I'm like, and I just continue on. So I probably get them. I'm just like not paying attention. And they could be a bright neon sign that says, "Hey, asshole, this is a sign." And I'd be like, "Oh, look, just says asshole." And I just keep going. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a really good place to start, actually, right at the asshole line, because the importance of paying attention and noticing when your attention's being pulled to something is how we can tell if it is a sign, symbol, or synchronicity for us. I also think we should talk about something to do with what are signs for people, right? Like, what are the symbols? What are certain things? This is what I tell people. Everything in this world, other people, nature, things that people do, things that you see, numbers, license plates, billboards, things on TV, music, on things you see on TikTok, everything can be used as a sign. Everything, because the spirit world can bring together people with synchronicity in the right timing for your attention to be pulled to those things, right? So those are just some of the examples, because literally you can use anything in the world to have that happen. It can also be things like smells that come out of nowhere, right? You may have a relative that passed that smoked a lot. And so whenever you smell cigarettes, that always makes you think of them. So you may get smells or just feeling a presence, right? That's another thing you may feel. But your guides may be giving you signs, and or your loved ones in spirit. Either way, they're on your spirit team, right? And really they're trying to help direct you toward paying attention to something, because either maybe you're going through the dumps, right? Maybe you're not feeling so good and you just need a little pick me up, a little reminder of, hey, you're not alone and we're here. And get your mind out of that place you feel stuck. You know, it kind of shakes you out of it in that moment. Or maybe because you've been grieving your loved one and your loved one's just trying to say, hey, I'm with you, right? So they use these signs of, all of a sudden I see a name of my dad and he comes right to my mind immediately. My dad knows that when I see that name, I'm going to think of him. And so he uses that to bring it to me. So they'll use things that they're aware that you know will make you think of them, maybe in memories or important music or whatever that thing may be for you, or their birthday, right? Or a number for you that's important. But also you can ask them for specific things. And then you need to be really, really open to how they may show it to you or give it to you, right? If you say, hey, can you show me a rainbow? Don't be so literal to think, okay, I'm going to now wait for it to rain and I'm going to see if there's a rainbow. Understand that it may come in a totally different form. It may come in through, all of a sudden you're walking past somebody and you get pulled to them and they have a giant rainbow on their shirt and it says like, have a great day, right? Or like, your mom loves you or something like that. You never know, right? So being open to the symbols and paying attention to them does matter, because if you're doing what Matt's doing, which is, kind of just keeping in your mind all the time and not really paying attention, you're going to miss them. And so people miss them all the time because they're not really noticing outside of just their mind. They're not noticing where they're being pulled, or they're not realizing the relevance of why that's happening to them.
Mm-hmm. My mind is a dark, cold place. Yeah, and I'm in my head a lot. Yeah, so I like I said, I get them. I just don't realize that it's them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I also don't ask for them. So should you ask for them? What are your guys' thoughts?
I say you can. Yeah, I think you absolutely can. And I have a story which I will share, but what do you think, Dana?
Yeah, well, so it's funny. One of the books out there that is on signs is Laura Lynn Jackson, and I think it's called Signs. And in that book, in that book, she specifically says, ask for specific signs, which is funny because I listened to the audiobook version of that, and it said ask for a specific sign. And this happened recently where I asked my grandpa for, I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for something big. And I asked for like purple dinosaur. And so I was like, Barney, like whatever. And out of nowhere in development circle, Matt said purple dinosaur. And I was like, remember that, Matt? Like it was like, and I just looked at you and I was like, dude, that's weird. Right. So things can pop through like that. But I always feel like when we ask for specific things, it's always tension. And I'm glad that you mentioned not putting too much pressure on the thing. It's almost like setting the intention and then releasing expectation on how it's going to show up.
Or when.
When.
It may be immediate. It may take some time. But again, the key point is notice when your attention's pulled. Don't look for it, because when you're constantly looking for it, you can make things into signs. Do I think that everything in this world can potentially be something like that for you if you're open to it? Sure. Do I think it's specific to what we're talking about when it comes to like passed over loved ones and guidance for you from guides? Then yes, right? But can we learn something through everything we're experiencing anyway? Yes, right? So it's kind of like, just be open to the experience and how it unfolds for you, because it's magical. Ooh, I want to share something one of my students actually shared today, and I'm not going to say any specific details around it, but she was talking about a story of how for 2 years in development, people would bring through a relative for her. And she never met this relative in person, but she was gathering the information over this time. She knew enough to validate it was him. And she gathered all this, she wrote it all down, all the details people brought through. And then her family was having an issue in the garage with a rodent. And so they were having to clear it out, and all this kind of thing happened. And all of a sudden, a box that was taken out of the garage, she just intuitively knew there was something in this somehow connected to that person. And when she opened it, basically the information in there led to validating a lot of the information that came through in that last 2.5 years of her development. And so it was a combination of like timing, having to wait, to be patient, and having some kind of scenario bring in a synchronicity for this to unfold in that way. And so it's almost like sometimes, even if it's not immediate that you get an answer to something, sometimes it almost feels more valuable in a way, right? When you've like had to sort of sit with this for a while. And for whatever that reason is for her, that was what it was. For someone else, maybe totally different timing, right? But I just love that, because I've had varying degrees of timing for myself. And my story, or at least one that's recent, is I was outside walking in my backyard, as I do. And anyone that knows me personally, or maybe sometimes follows me on TikTok, will often see me. I may make like a story and I'm like walking back and forth, like either in my room or outside, because you can walk anywhere, everyone. You don't have to go to a treadmill or, run anywhere crazy. You could just walk anywhere. Anyway, I was doing that outside, and there was a situation going on in my life. And I just basically said to the spirit world, I just need to know, like, I need some kind of something to help me with reassurance right now. Can you send me a hawk? Can you show me a hawk somehow? I know that you will. I don't know when, but I trust that you will. And I just let it go. So I was out there. And then like maybe a minute after, I decided, okay, I'm just going to need to sit here. I'm just going to like sit and close my eyes and sort of meditate. So I was just sort of in that space. And so I closed my eyes and I was just sort of like zoning out and sort of like tuning in to like sort of sitting in the power, kind of like moving into that sort of space, which is sort of a no mind space for anyone that doesn't already do that or hasn't heard of that before. When, again, maybe less than a minute, all of a sudden I heard this sort of like boom, sort of sound like that. And it drew my attention. So I opened my eyes and I literally look across from me on my fence, and a hawk had landed on my fence and was looking at me. And I was like, what? And I was like, I grabbed my phone, and I have the video. We can share it in here if you guys want to. Oh my God. Oh my God. Of the hawk just sitting there looking at me. I took a couple pictures and a video, and he let me take the video just long enough to basically like have him look at me for a couple seconds and then flew away. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I like literally started crying because it was like an immediate response to my request. And that has never happened. Okay. Hawks do not land on my fence. Like hawks are not just hanging around here. Like, yes, they're in Southern California, but like that does not happen. Okay. And it was like literally an immediate response to my question of like just needing reassurance for some sort of situation that I was going through. Why they were able to do that in that timing so quickly, I don't know, but I'm grateful. Is it always going to happen that immediately? No, right? Just like my other story with my student having it be 2 years, right? 2.5 years or whatever, how long it took. Maybe a week for you, maybe a month for you, right? Maybe immediate. But the point is that it comes in some way, shape, or form, and that you realize that you are being listened to. And it's not that sometimes they're not trying to give you immediate responses. Sometimes maybe they can't for whatever reason. Maybe there's like a timing thing, just like with hers, right? She had to collect all of that information first for it to have such a meaning as it now does. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that story. I love animals as a sign or as a messenger, which kind of draws me to an interesting topic, because when I was kind of starting to open up to signs and synchronicities and symbols and all of that, I would get these things and I would immediately go to the doom and gloom of like, what are they trying to tell me?
Right.
Like, oh my God. And I would really like start to worry, like when I would start to get a lot of signs like, oh my God, this is a warning. They're like warning me about something. And I would really start, I would freak out.
Tail spinning.
Yeah, total tailspin. And first off, like what I want to tell everybody is they don't do that. They don't do anything of like, if anything, I think that there are certain things that they do to help us of like, all of a sudden you'll just get a pull to turn left when you normally turn right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's not anything to like, and it's just to help you on your journey. It's not, it's not like, well, or whatever. It's just that little nudge to kind of put you on the right path. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of help that the spirit world gives us. That's the kind of help our family members and our spirit helpers and all of that will give us. But I always felt initially like I was like, oh my God, they're like warning me and they're like, there's something doom and gloom is happening. Mm-hmm. And I was just always so worried. And then I realized like, oh no, they're just supporting me and they're helpful and they're beautiful messages. But I think that when I see like signs from this, like animals, I always feel like they're trying to give me a bigger message. Like for me, I was seeing snakes for a really long time. And some people might look at snakes and be like, oh, that's really scary. But like to me, snakes meant like, be flexible, shed what isn't serving you anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So sometimes like animal messengers to me, like if I see a lot of bunnies, I'm like, be playful, have fun, don't be so serious. So I feel like sometimes when there's animal or like a hawk or an eagle, I'm like, oh, have a bigger perspective, have some freedom in the situation. Mm-hmm. And there's always this like desire to Google, what does a hawk mean? What does a snake mean? What does this mean? And I always tell people, don't Google. And some people might have there's books upon books. You can Google meanings of what certain things mean. And you can do this with numbers too, right? But there's also different cultural beliefs of like, what animals might mean. And like the number 3 is good luck in some cultures, but the number 3 is bad luck in some cultures. So what does it mean to you? What is the first thing is what I always tell people, instead of like relying on me telling you as a psychic medium what it means, or relying on a book or Google what it means. What does it mean to you? How does it make you feel when you see that sign or symbol? What's the first thing that comes to you? And starting to learn and trust that, because overall, I think that's the biggest message from the spirit world when we get these signs and symbols and synchronicities, is to lean in on trusting ourselves and trusting the world around us and trusting the universe, and that they have our back and that we are all going to be okay no matter what. And that's like the biggest meaning of all. So I don't know. I kind of went off.
So I used to say it more like that. Like I used to always say, I still say this, but like check in with yourself. What comes to you in the moment? What do you feel as you're seeing that or as you're experiencing that? Because that's going to give you a lot of information. But I've also included that, you know, what if you're not somebody that's super in tune with that yet? And so what if that spirit person or guide knows that for you, that means it's going to lead you to Google and that's going to be the answer, right? So that's why I'm kind of like, not this or that, but this and that for me, because I think that sometimes there is information in that for you, or maybe it's like you Google it and it leads you to something else that is important for you to see, which is the same reason, like, so when we talk about angel numbers, and what angel numbers are is people, when they see repeating numbers, so they'll call them angel numbers, like 333, 444, whatever, or just a series of numbers that mean something to you. Same thing for that. I always say, what's the meaning to you, right? Like for me, I see a number that is something meaningful to me. That's not necessarily an angel number, but I also see angel numbers. But I like to see, what did I feel in the moment? Was I just thinking of something? Was there some reason that my attention would be pulled to that? Or am I just like really in alignment right now? And it's actually just the fact that I'm really in alignment and feeling really good and feeling really open, that my attention is being drawn to that as just sort of like a little like, yay, you go girl sort of a thing. You know what I mean? Like sometimes if you're not in a good place and you're not really connected to yourself very well, having that option to Google something still helps you, right? Like having the information that's out there, and may not be something that, you know, you're going to align with, right? So if you do read something, you're like, no, that doesn't really set well with me, then don't take that in, right? Like let that go. But if it's something that's relevant to your life, like there's like that website, that angel number website, where it has all the numbers, all the series of numbers that could potentially be, and there's a message for each one of those things. If those feel helpful to you and that feels like, you know, something in the moment that works, I say, sure, why not, right? But like, if it doesn't, let it go. And also lean in on what Dana's saying and what I'm saying, as far as like, see what you feel first, right?
Yep.
Is it, maybe it matches to what you're feeling, right? Maybe it's like a double sign. Maybe it's like a double information thing for you to have. You get yours and that extra thing, right? So I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
Can we just take a moment and just celebrate Robert from angelnumbers.com for taking the time to give meaning to every single one of those angel numbers?
I mean, yeah, that's, I'm sure that, you know, he probably was maybe doing that for a multitude of reasons, but still, like, I think that's a pretty cool database, honestly.
Man, do you think he sat in math class and was like, this is my sign?
But so some of this comes, and I talked about this for a second, like some of it does come from cultural beliefs, right?
Or
like
numerology.
Sometimes, yeah. So some of it can be from numerology.
Can't wait for that adventure.
I mean, but there is energy in a number.
Yeah.
If there's just purely from, you know, I teach this when I teach tarot, just the energy of the one. It's the beginning.
The full.
To
right?
The full is 0.
0. Yeah, I was gonna say like that's not right. What's one?
One is the ace. So if we were going to talk about, you know, like the minor arcana, like the ace is the potential, the beginning, to the 10, which is the completion of a cycle, right? Mm-hmm. So we have energy in each number. 5 can be like in the middle, and sometimes can feel like really difficult or in the middle or whatever. But sometimes 5 can just be, you were born in May and you see a lot of 5s because your loved one was born in May, and that's just what that means.
Right.
And that's why I never want to get so like attached to a number.
Yeah.
And Matt and I also have a joke that's anything's an angel number if you want it bad enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
It is true. I mean, especially if you assign it. So like, I know John Edward will tell people assign something to your loved one, or Jonathan Lewis, they'll say assign a symbol to your loved one. And that way they know to use that to get your attention. I say that's one option, right? Like I said, like you can ask them for a symbol, you can ask them for something, or you could just be open to what makes you think of them when you see something, right? So I know I don't like to really like limit it. I kind of want to just keep it open because I know the spirit world can literally use anything to get through things. Just like we were saying with the purple dinosaur thing, they used Matt, right? They use other people, they use mediums, but they use just normal everyday people that you may be chatting to get a message through to you. And they have no idea what they're saying has any meaning to you, but yet it's so meaningful to you.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah.
Because you guys are just so educational that I'm going to bring it in another direction. So if you could go across the board and say, okay, Megan, if you were on the other side, what sign would you give me to know that you're here? Dana, what would be yours? It's like, what sign? How do I know I have the Megan trying to be like, shh, pay attention?
So I would possibly send you my birthday. Like my 8/25. You might see 8/25 a lot. You've said, Matt, that you would send me your birthday.
Yeah.
Don't send me your birthdays because you guys don't remember mine and I'm not going to remember yours.
One time.
Nail check.
One time. Yeah, we didn't do the nail check. One time.
Wow. We're still holding on to that, aren't we?
Well, I'm just being realistic. I'm just being honest. Like, if you guys saw my birthday, it would never faze you. You would never, ever be like, oh, that's Megan's birthday.
Just send me the day later because that's what I had in my calendar.
Okay, let's tell the story really quick. So Megan's birthday was last year, and obviously she had a birthday.
Last year. Yeah.
And I had gotten up the morning that I thought her birthday was and made her this beautiful like message and did this really cool stuff. We and Dana sent her gifts. And
like
then
we ordered it 2 weeks before we planned like this whole thing.
Prepared. Turns out it was the next day that we celebrated her birthday. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
Horrible
well, if honestly though, if it was just you guys, that would have been one thing. But it wasn't just you guys. It was other people too that are close to me. And so when you guys talked to me around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or all the people that forgot my birthday, it was just me in instant tears.
I think I called you at like 6 o'clock.
Okay. The other person I'm referring to is like 9 or 10 o'clock at night that day.
I may have texted that other person. I'm like,
that makes sense.
Horrible friend.
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, so birthday's a little tender still.
So birthdays are off the table. Okay. All
right. For me, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not going to limit myself. So, I mean, obviously, if you saw someone with hair color like mine, it may make you think of me.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you saw someone that is absolutely gorgeous, you may think of me. I'm just joking.
Every time I watch Top Model, I think about you.
I know Haunted Mansion because we did Haunted Mansion together. So like Haunted Mansion stuff.
Yeah. Disney. If you start hearing a guy screaming on, It's a Small World, and that's a little bitch, maybe that'll make you think of me too. But it was Matt that was doing that.
The guy at Disney World who got off of the Small World ride and ran around naked, that was the dip we were looking for.
That was the dip. Yeah. So we have to tell everybody the story because not everybody knows.
Oh, that was fun. It's like one of my favorite memories.
Oh my God. So we went, this was last year. This was last year.
What? It was like, was it May of last year?
No, it was March, I think.
March
no, because we went right after Matt's birthday last year.
Yeah.
So we went and saw you in March last year. And we went to Disneyland. And the three of us went. And we did like all the rides, but we went on Pirates of the Caribbean. And on Pirates of the Caribbean, you're on a boat. And there's this one little part at the beginning where you're on the boat and it goes down, right? And so you hold on and there's a dip. And then after we do Pirates of the Caribbean, I love Matt's face during all this. So after we get out of Pirates of the Caribbean, we hit It's a Small World.
Oh,
and
no,
I'm like,
okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah. We hit It's a Small World. And I'm like, Matt, have you ever been on that? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh my God, we have to go on It's a Small World. You've never been on it. We have to go on it. So we're standing in line and he's like, what's this about? I was like, oh, it's a bunch of haunted dolls. Funny, right? Because we're all mediums and it's funny. And so we get on it and it's a boat again. And so he's like, are there dips? And I was like, yeah, there are dips.
I came up with that. I said, you're going to have there's dips in this ride because we plotted. I think we slightly plotted this. I don't remember.
We may have.
I remember there was something that we were like, yeah, we're going to tell him there's dips in this one.
So the whole ride, he is holding the front of the boat, like gripping it. Like we finally get to the end of the ride and he's like, where are the dips? And I realized, I was like, you've been waiting this whole time for a dip.
Did. I was holding on for dear life. But you know what the great synchronicity and sign for karmatic return is? We went back on the Pirates ride. I sat in the middle and we went down over that dip and these two got wet. So
we did.
I was dry as a bone. So
both of our butts got wet.
Who's laughing now?
We went on the Matterhorn and Matt was screaming and I could not stop laughing. Oh my God, it was the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, it's fun times with Megan, Alisa, and Dana Willey.
There is a video. We'll have to put it in to this where it's us walking away from the small world and Matt is like mad dog in this small world. Oh my God. He was like looking at the small world and like mad at it. And Megan's like,
I really thought it would have a dip because I was like, all these bastards are like standing in line. It's got a really long line. It must be exciting, just like Pirates. It's fucking dolls being like,
oh, they're so cute though. I love It's a Small World.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
The whole time. There's no change in lyrics. It's just the same thing. So I was like, this is going to get really thrilling. I swear to God, we're going to go down into a cave and we're going to see like little dolls under the world. I didn't know.
Yeah, but think of the symbolism of life as we go
well,
through It's a Small World. The symbolism of life is that it's just a cycle of the same things, but we're just having our own experiences within that cycle of the same things from our own perspective, and so it all feels different to us.
So
it was just great world. Because I didn't. I had forgotten we told him all of this, and we're like, it's at the end, you know, where you're starting to see the outside world, and he's still holding on, and he's like, "Where's the dips?" And I was like, oh shit.
You know the moment I knew you lied to me?
Huh?
When I saw Moana.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess there's no dips. So let's talk about like, can spirit use like electricity and electronics to like almost immediately give signs and stuff like that? Because I had a weird, I guess I had a sign.
Okay, tell us.
So the day that my dad had passed away, or we had, not the day, maybe it was a couple days after, his family had came over to my mom's house and there was an argument over like a will or whatever. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But words were being had. And the minute somebody said, I'll see you next Tuesday, the whole entire second floor electricity completely went out. The third floor was still on. The first floor was still on. But the second where they had the argument, completely gone. Like completely out. My dad was a electrical grid regional director. Would dispatch like the electrical crews. So
yeah, that makes sense for him to do that.
It happened again. Got home, was mourning my dad, was on the phone with my mom, a little angry about his passing. Boom, the lights in my whole entire room go out. Yep. Like on my floor.
That's absolutely a sign, Matt.
Mm-hmm. You know what that sign was? Shut the fuck up. that was my sign. I'm not supposed to whisper anymore. I've been given feedback, but I can't whisper.
I'm not supposed to whisper?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a certain someone that doesn't like when we whisper on the podcast.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that makes me want to do it, though, when you
I
tell
know.
me that.
Let's give this person a sign in the podcast.
I'm so
Ready?
Sorry.
This is your sign.
I'm a Sagittarius fire sign. Don't tell me not to do things because I'll do them more. I'm so sorry.
Take your sign, bitch. So what is a synchronicity? Can I ask, what is a synchronicity?
that's actually a great question, first off. And secondly, why I think it's important to know that, like, when things are happening, so Matt, something happened out of you can't really mundanely explain what happened, right? It happened for a reason, at really specific timing,
Right.
synchronistically, like it happened in specific timing at opportune times in a really specific way.
Right.
I think that, Matt and I have this joke, and I kind of referred to it earlier, that everything's an angel number if you want it bad enough, because I think that there can get into this mindset of everything is a sign, everything's an angel number, everything's a this, everything is magical, because we don't have any discernment or anything. And it's when something is kind of out of place or special timing, even to your story, Megan, with the hawk, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not out of line for a hawk to show up in Southern California, but to have a hawk show up at the time that it did, when it did, there was something special about the time for it to do that. So I had recently a thing about owls. We talked about the owl. We will not do any owl jokes, guys. I promise. Who? But I went through a whole thing where Matt's gonna.
Once again, Matt's not involved in the joke. Synchronicities, signs and symbols.
But there was like everywhere I turned, there was owls. I would see owls everywhere. I like would go to the store and there would be owls everywhere, or I would see owls there, or there would be references to owls. And it's like you keep seeing it over and over and over again, and you can't explain it away, right? What's
You're telling me you didn't get a hoot out of that?
It was a hoot.
Sorry, it was there. I had to take it because, why not?
But it's important that there's something that we don't just try to find something special, and that there
not
is something.
It fit.
Well,
exactly.
It's so that we can tell when those special moments happen, right? Mm-hmm. So, because if everything is special, nothing's special, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to have that understanding that, again, I do feel that everything is something in some way, because everything is spirit. Really, that's what this whole universe consists of. But when it's directly speaking to us in a certain way at a certain moment, there's a reason behind it. And that's the magical part, right? That's the part that's meant to speak to you and be like, oh, there's something here for me, right? Because if we're taking an input all the time, we can't be constantly paying attention to that. That just wouldn't be something we could do. So it's something that we're paying attention to in that moment, that like the alignment is happening, right? So the exact timing that you happen to be, in the where you're driving and you just happen to look over and there's the exact car that your dad had and it was like a special model and it has, a date on it, or like whatever that timing is, right? That had to be arranged somehow for that to happen. I mean, think about all the people in the world. Think about all the times where you could have been somewhere else, they could have been somewhere else, and how things line up together. That's orchestrated. That's coming from an intelligent place. Right. And that's magical. That's something that helps us to remember, like, hey, we're not just these mundane bodies, meat suits walking through the life that we're having difficulty with. And actually, there's so much more happening behind the scenes, which helps us to kind of stay afloat sometimes. Sometimes we really need those signs.
So let's take it from the perspective of the opposite, right? So like, let's say that none of it's spiritual, right? And you're not a very spiritual person, or you don't believe in it. I think that like when you look at signs, symbols, and synchronicities as they happen, I think it's just a way to honor your loved one, even if you don't believe in the extra woo of spirit coming in, placing it down, but just taking a moment and honoring somebody's life that you loved a lot, right? And just having a moment of mindfulness of the relationship that you had. And that I think that, I don't want somebody to be like wandering around being like, send me a sign, send me a sign, send me a sign, but just take a moment, just like sit within gratitude that you got to have that love and relationship. What do you think of that?
I think that it's really hard for someone that's a newly grieving person not to get into that give me a sign place.
Yeah.
And I was just having a conversation with somebody who was asking me about this exact thing on TikTok message where, their loved one passed in a very tragic way. And there's lots of anger around the passing. And they haven't felt like there are signs or anything yet. And so I was helping to explain to them that sometimes we're in very deep grief. It can be harder to sometimes notice those subtle ways that spirit speaks to us through signs and symbols and energy and all that, because grief is heavy and grief is all consuming. And so sometimes we have to give it a little time to notice that. But it's also not to say, because she said, oh, a medium said, you won't ever get a sign when someone just dies because of your grief and you can't perceive them. And I said, no, that's not true, because there's lots of people that get signs immediately. And, it's not about that. It's just about understanding that if you haven't got one yet, that doesn't mean you won't. And it may be just so that you need to kind of process and deal with your own grief first. And then that may come when it's needed, right? Because the truth is your loved one is with you all the time, trying to help you through that grief, even if you're unaware of them or unaware of what they're trying to get you to know. Like, right, like with you, with that light thing, right, the electrical thing.
Yeah.
Did you realize it at the time, or how long did it take you to realize that may be something from your loved one?
Instantly.
You felt that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you did know that at the time. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad. Some people may have an experience like that and not realize what that was. Like for me, no, I knew it was him. Okay. But the first time my dad came through to me, and this was before my mediumship development, and I've always been very open spiritually. I've always sensed spirits and things like that when I did have an awareness of something. I just didn't always know where to place that or whatever. But a couple weeks, I would say 2 weeks after my dad passed, I was sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden I smelt something, and it felt very familiar with me and very distinct. And it was the smell of my father's flatulence. And I know this is hilarious to people, and it's hilarious to me too, but that is my dad very much, where he had a very particular scent because of all the medication he was on. And so he would sometimes let one rip and just stay silent and just wait for someone else near him to smell it, and then just bust up laughing because he knew. And so literally all of a sudden I smelt that, and I was like, huh, Dad? And like, that's very much his sense of humor, and then that distinct smell connected to him and just the way he was, right? So that was the first way he came through to me. To my sister, who's my half sister, my dad worked on car radios. He worked with electronics. My dad did all kinds of things with cars. He rebuilt cars from the chassis up, classic cars. He was very talented. He came through her car stereo and did something with the speakers, like the day after the passing or something like that. And, like these things are relevant, right? So the way they come through to you will sometimes be in alignment with exactly who they were as a person, right? Like with my story, with Matt's story. And sometimes, it's just the way that they can get through to you, right? So sometimes if you're not paying attention to it, they'll try to find a way to get through to you because you're in grief and you need to know they're okay and that they're okay, right? So it really varies.
One of my favorite ways and the most discounted ways that our loved ones show up is just a random thought that pops into our head from nowhere. Wow. And it's, we feel like signs need to be this like, oh my gosh, all the lights went off on the second floor. Right. Like it has to be or I can smell something or yeah. Like you did. But how often do our loved ones just pop into our mind out of nowhere? And that is such a beautiful way for them just to be showing that they're with us. And it doesn't have to be this like, oh my gosh, this is like, whoa, they're here. Yeah. It's usually something soft and subtle like that, of just that you can't trace the thought of how they popped into your mind. They just did. Yeah. And that's them showing that they're with us. And that's really honestly one of my favorite ways of just like going, yep, they're here. They're just saying hi.
Yeah. So instead of an external experience trying to bring you to understanding that, you're having an internal experience. But a lot of people discount that because they think they're the ones thinking of their relative, not the fact that they just came to them and all of a sudden they're there in their mind. And that's the thing that people don't realize, is that when it comes to like intuition or the way spirit speaks to mediums or speaks to anyone that doesn't do mediumship, is it's going to come to you out of nowhere, right? All of a sudden it's just going to hit you. So it may be like a feeling of them, a seeing of them in your mind, a memory comes to mind. You hear their name, you hear their laugh, you hear them talking to you in some way, right? There can be a bunch of different ways you can perceive them for yourself internally. But if you're not already thinking of them, like let's say you are in grief, right, in the beginning, and so they're all you think about, right? Let's say you get past that initial stage of grief, and you're doing a lot of normal things now and you're able to sort of handle your day, and all of a sudden they just come to you, right? Into your mind. That would be one of those ways I'd say pay attention to that, right? Pay attention to what's coming to you out of nowhere, because that's just their way of saying it's them.
Mm-hmm.
I had another sign from my dad.
Oh.
So I lied to you. I get signs. So on the day of his anniversary of his, he's been gone almost 10 years. On the day of his passing, there was a guy that looked just like him at the gas station. Like, I think identically like him, standing out smoking a cigarette outside the gas station on the day that he did it. So I guess, synchronicity signed. But I find those ones a little bit more creepy when I see people that look like my loved one. Where I'm like, oh no, I buried you. You're gone.
Oh, I had one with my dad. Actually, I was at Disneyland. I don't remember how long after my dad had passed at that point, but it was at least a couple years after. But it was the first time I ever saw someone who looked just like my dad. All of a sudden, I was just walking down Main Street, and it was like at one of those restaurants over there. And I turned and I saw him that looked just like my dad, and instant tears, instant, because I was just like,
It hit you.
It can knock the wind out of you, really, because you're just like, wow, because you don't ever expect to see them again that way. No. You know what I mean? But you do in different ways because of, again, that synchronicity, that alignment of just being like, hey, I'm here too. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm with you where you're at in Disneyland, or hey, I'm with you with whatever you're doing. Just want you to know.
And you remember where you were at, because that happened to me where I know exactly the intersection it was, because I remember driving and looking over into the car next to me, and I'm like, oh my God, that's my dad. That's my dad. That's my dad. And like the feeling of like, holy shit. Cause it just shakes you. It just like shakes you to your core. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yes. And that's what we should be looking for to some certain level. I mean, it's such a tricky thing, because it is like this, like this moment from like, oh my God, like this is so amazing, to, was that a sign? Was that really a sign? Oh my gosh. And there's always this vasculation between those two things of like,
well, I always think it's crazy though, because like you could have incredible detailed signs, and some people are like, nah. Like, what?
You're making
I saw him floating in my room, but I was like, nah, it's not him.
I need a signier sign is like the biggest thing, like we were in Sedona. So Matt wasn't really used, like Matt just said, oh, I don't get signs. And then he gave like 30,000 signs from his dad. Right. But like Matt, I've told Matt that I was getting signs and all of that. And then we went to Sedona, and that was like the first time that we spent time together. Mm-hmm. And he was like ridiculous after that. I have a loved one that sends me colorful cars, and to be specific, purple cars. And I think we saw 7 purple cars in Sedona. And by the end of it, Matt was like, that's it. I give up. Like that's freaking crazy. Like you don't see 1 purple car, much less 7, especially in Sedona. Like what are the chances?
Yeah. It's really funny because I tested your loved one one time, because I know your loved one, where I was like, oh, I haven't seen so-and-so in a while. And no lie, I was driving down the street with you on the phone, and all of a sudden the sign kept coming up over and over and over. It's like, okay, I'll shut the fuck up now. I was like, thank you so much for giving me that. So I learned not to test your loved ones, because they're like, try me, bitch. Let me take my watch.
I think it's just being open to it of I think there is a certain, because I know you, Matt, like I know that there is this, I think when you go through into the world, you are I'm in the world, I'm Matt, I'm eating my hamburgers and hot dogs, and
I love meat,
playing with my Barbies, and that's what I do, and I'm Matt. Mm-hmm. And when you do spiritual stuff, you're spiritual stuff, but we always joke around that you live in like either the black or the white. There's not the gray area. And, if somebody says there's dips at the small world, you're like, okay.
All right. Yeah. Trust. My trust issues have trust issues.
But I think that's partially why you don't see as many signs when you're out walking about, because you're just like, I'm in mundane, regular world, and you don't open yourself up to the spiritual world when you're out and about in regular world.
So we talked a lot about loved ones giving signs, right? What
Mhm.
about guides, right? What about things that are a little bit less obvious sometimes, right? Because sometimes it's just that sense of that feeling that we get. We all of a sudden turn right, like Dana said before, like all of a sudden I want to turn right, or oh, all of a sudden I get this inspiration. I want to go to this store, and then you follow it, and then the exact thing you've been asking to find for the last month is there, right? Or however it is they get you to, oh, I have another one. So, and I know this is more about intuition more than like signs, but I still think it like aligns with it. I was looking for my passport for like a month, and I was like, where is it? It's not anywhere of the places that it should be. And I was like, it's not here. It's not here. It's not here. And I'm like, where is it? And then finally I gave up, and I was like, okay, I give up. And then all of a sudden I was given an inspiration to look through an old jewelry box. Like, oh, I should just look through this old jewelry box, not even for that, not even for the passport, but just to look through it. And so I went to go look through it just for fun, right? Just to kind of like, oh, what's in here? Like, ooh. And then all of a sudden there was my passport, right? So it's things like that that they'll give you to take you to find these things. And it can come through in all different kinds of ways, but it's very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I think people need to understand when it comes to the way our guides or our own intuition speaks to us. It can be very subtle or not make sense to the rational mind as well. So sometimes you're out and you may start seeing a bunch of ladybugs, or you might start seeing little hearts. If it means something to you, right? The spirit world will use it, including our guides. And kind of learning how to notice the magic in the mundane world too. Again, not everything is that thing, right? Not everything, but while you're out and about and being open to noticing things, it doesn't have to be a life altering, crazy thing for you to realize, oh, like this is something for me in some way, right? Whether it's just a little pick me up, or it's a little like, you're doing a great job, or like just a little like, ooh, I feel good about that, right? It's a nice thing to be open to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad, because I do want to reemphasize that everything is encouragement. It's helpful.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of times you'll get those little number signs or those little things when you have like a really inspired thought, or like, I should really do this. And then all of a sudden you get a synchronicity or
Yeah.
a sign. And it's like, yeah, do the thing, go for it. And
Mhm.
so it's just that like little push or that nudge to do the thing. So I love that.
Yeah. It's always, yeah, always some form of encouragement, whether you are like in a bad place in your mind, right? Or you're doing really well. It's just that, because remember, the spirit world is unconditional love, right? And support. So understanding that that's where that's coming from, it doesn't really matter what state you're in. You're unconditionally loved, right? So whether you're in a really bad, dark place, or you're in a really great, high joyful place, right? It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of knowing you're loved and supported, and like being taken through life, right? You are on a journey through life, and there are signs, synchronicities, and symbols that are shown to you, given to you to help you through that journey, to go from one place to the next. And your job is just to trust and follow that.
You know, one last thing that I want to add, don't overthink it. If you get a sign, just note it and like go, cool. I used to, at the very, very beginning of my journey, I always had like a journal with me, or I would have like voice memo notes on my phone or whatever. Just take note of it, right? You can journal on these things. Like I was having the thought of XYZ, and then I got this sign, and just leave it. I think when we overthink things, that's when we run into trouble, or when we go off some weird beaten path. Just notice it and notice the patterns, and
Yes.
notice like the patterns of when things start to happen. That's when you're going to start to figure out like, oh, that's when that's coming through. And that's when you're going to start to be able to trust these signs and symbols and synchronicities a little bit better. But I think we always get into trouble when we start to wonder, like, what does this mean? And what does this mean? Just journal about it, leave it be, and then just set it and forget it.
Totally. Yeah. Be light with it, and just let it be a part of your experience. It doesn't have to be something you get hung up on.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Well, this was fun. I like this topic. I
Mm-hmm.
hope this was a good sign for you to listen and pay attention and be aware of how the universe is communicating with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you found us through a synchronistic event and now you're our new favorite podcast listener.
Yeah. So this is your sign to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, because you're like probably like me. You're just wandering through life and you need somebody to tell you what to do. So
we're not here to tell people what to do, Matt.
I'm telling them to subscribe. We need them.
Oh, that part. Sure,
they need
fine.
us.
Sure,
I want an angel number. I want an angel number of likes and subscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's in alignment to you, if you feel aligned to this podcast and to us, then go ahead and do that. If you don't, you want to go listen to something else. Free will, baby. Free will.
Yeah, you got this.
Is Free Will a guy? Is his name?
Free Willey is his name.
Oh,
actually.
oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Dana, I've been watching your earrings the whole entire time, and what it looks like to me is they're really cute.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like you skinned 2 leprechauns and just hung them on your ears as like a trophy.
Yeah.
It's the Fae, actually. She decided to go. She
The
decided to go
changelings.
after them. Yeah, she just decided, you know what? I am gonna fuck with the Fae, actually, and I'm just gonna.
This is your sign not to fuck with me.
Yeah, this is your fuck around and find out sign, Faye. This was Karen and this was Julie. They were my garden Fae.
Fuck around, find out.
Welcome to the Willey's house, bitch. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We love you dearly. We'll see you later.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.